Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just last month, hundreds of thousands of residents in Toledo, Ohio, were left without access to potable water and faced an extended drinking water ban after unsafe toxin levels, likely caused by a Lake Erie algae bloom, were found at a city water treatment plant. In January, Charleston, West Virginia residents faced a similar ban on their drinking water after a chemical spill. George Bernard Shaw once said, "Success does not consist in never making mistakes, but in never making the same one a second time." One would think after two new incidents that left hundreds of thousands of Americans without access to clean drinking water, this body would jump into action to prevent this from ever happening again. And yet, Mr. Speaker, the House hasn't only refused to act. Yesterday, we actually voted to prevent the administration from acting. Again and again, my colleagues continue to introduce bills and riders that would endanger our drinking water while ignoring basic scientific principles in the process. Today, more than 117 million Americans get their drinking water from systems that rely on rivers, streams, and wetlands, which at this very moment are not clearly protected under the Clean Water Act. Let me say that again. 117 million Americans are getting their drinking water from bodies of water that may not be protected from pollution or destruction. American families deserve clarity, and that's exactly what the administration is trying to provide with their proposed Clean Water Act rule. And unbelievably enough, that's exactly what the House voted to prevent yesterday. For years, we relied on the Clean Water Act to protect the nation's waters. For my constituents back home in Chicago, that meant everything from wetlands on the shores of Lake Michigan to the inland streams that flow across the Great Lakes region. But two Supreme Court decisions in 2001 and 2006 changed all that, leaving us with a confusing, time-consuming, and frustrating process for determining which of the nation's waters are now protected under federal law and which are not. It is imperative that we close what has become a harmful loophole. And that's what the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers are trying to do with their proposed rule, clarifying the scope of the Clean Water Act. Let's be clear. The EPA and the Corps of Engineers are acting within the authority granted them by Congress under the Clean Water Act to legally clarify the statute's jurisdiction. This clarity is desperately needed, especially in the Great Lakes Basin. Half the streams in the Great Lakes states lack clear water protection simply because they do not all flow all year. This lack of protection has taken its toll, slowing permitted decisions for responsible development and reducing protections for drinking water supplies and critical habitats. The EPA and Army Corps' proposed rule would restore Clean Water Act protections to wetlands and tributary streams because the science clearly shows that these water bodies are connected. Before proposing its rule, the EPA analyzed more than 1,000 peer-reviewed scientific articles, and the findings are irrefutable. Tributary streams and wetlands are clearly connected to downstream waters. Pollution is carried down the river, polluting bigger and bigger waterways. Healthy wetlands improve water quality by filtering polluted runoff from farm fields and city streets that otherwise would flow into rivers, streams, and great water bodies across the country. Wetlands and tributaries provide vital habitat to wildlife, waterfowl, and fish, reduce floodings, and replenish groundwater supplies. We cannot protect and restore the Great Lakes without drinking water supplies and our drinking water supplies without first protecting and restoring the wetlands and upstream waters that feed into them. Congress passed the Clean Water Act with the intention of protecting our waterways, and that's what it did for almost 30 years. Now, this administration is trying to bring back these protections this House has undermined. Let's not make the same mistake twice. Let's let the experts do their job. Thank you, and I yield back.